Good afternoon, everyone. It's the regular monthly meeting of the Dayton Stormwater Committee. This is also a remote participation Zoom meeting. It is a public meeting being video and audio recorded for cable broadcast and internet posting on www.dayton-ma.gov and YouTube. Zoom meeting number 822-6496-1251. Zoom meeting password 282-051. Call-in number 929-205-6099. Are we all set, you think, with that recording thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, we'll start with Mr. Killing.
Here.
Mr. Aguirre.
Here.
Mr. Berry.
Here.
Mr. Hines.
Here.
Mr. Burnett.
Here.
Mr. Goulart. Thank you. Roz, we can keep an eye on the clock because we have a public hearing at 1:30 with Clearway.
Okay.
We'll move to item 5, new business. Review, discuss, act, 2371 County Street. Who would like to give us an update on that site visit?
Yes, so the committee went out and did a site visit and we invited the owner, and whatever, with their attorney to come to the next meeting, which would have been today, but their attorney wasn't able to make it, so he asked that they be put on the next agenda to talk about it. So, we're gonna put them on for the next agenda. But yeah, no new information since the site walk.
And just for the benefit of anyone watching this meeting later on, just give a brief description of what it is we went to the site to look at.
So we had received complaints that there had been fill dumped into the, it's still on their own property, but it was where the old railroad bed was. And with the fill being dumped there, there was a wetland there and it was kind of damming up some water, so we had to go take a look at it. But obviously we haven't had any discussion yet on what we've seen, but that was why we were there.
Does anybody have any questions or any comments? Mr. Berry?
They understand verbally not to disturb anything prior.
They got written notification through their attorney too.
Okay.
Because when he asked for the continuance, I did send a letter and telling him we would continue it till the July meeting, and we would let him know the date, the exact date and time, and that he should advise his clients that they were not to disturb anything, including no new dumping, no removal, no moving it around, nothing. It's gonna stay exactly the way it was, so.
Okay.
So we should be all set there. Next item 5B, review, discuss, act on 2020 MS4. So as of June 30th, we will have completed another year. This is year 3. And I had sent this to you, Russ. I don't know if you had a chance to photo this for the board.
No, but I can run down now.
Okay. Yeah, by the end of the meeting, we'll make sure they have it. But this is just a reminder from a company called Comprehensive Environmental. And they always send these things out because obviously they're looking to consult on projects. So just briefly, with the end of the June 2021 year of NPDES Phase 2, MS4, our MS4 work draws to a close. In summary, communities should have the following items completed by the end of June. Screening all municipally owned outfalls, flow, and illicit discharge indicators during dry weather conditions. pass regulatory mechanisms covering stormwater discharges from sites disturbing 1+ acres during and after construction for most communities with a phosphorus TMDL, prepare a funding source assessment as part of the phosphorus control plan, annual requirements, inspect all the municipally owned stormwater structures, we do that. Complete training for employees, complete quarterly inspections for SWIPs, public education. We're obviously a little behind on that one because we weren't able to contact the public. The annual report due at the end of September. I'm not sure what that is, except that I did write a report for the town report. Obviously, it was the calendar year, but I'll figure that out. Then they talk about what's coming up for year 4. So I will just mention, I worked with Mrs. Grassi because our supply of public educational materials is dwindling. I have items left over from previous purchases that I plan to give out at that event in July, when they're having that, what I think they're calling it firecracker, something or other, to give the public information about what it is different departments and committees do. So, what Mrs. Grassi and I have ordered, and we hope to have them here before that, is we have some large clips like the kind you put on potato chip bags with an imprinted message on it. And was that your message, Mr. Ferry, about keeping water clean? Well, you've been published.
Freshness tool.
Yes.
So, yeah,
Okay.
I was going towards the illicit water discharge, using that plant, keep air out from keep the chips fresh, that's what the fresher tool for.
Well, we used it, Mr. Ferry. And the other thing that we ordered was 2022 landscape calendars. These will be all gone by the end of this calendar year, because what we don't give out publicly, I will take to businesses around town, and we'll have some in town hall, but we ordered 500, and it will indicate town event, stormwater committee, so forth and so on. So, and we have enough of these that will happen for future events, but because of what happened with the COVID last year, we didn't have Alliance, we didn't have the access. So, I realize we're after the end of the year, but we will have something this July when we have that event at Town Hall. Mr. Ferry, before you leave today, I need this signed so we can get it paid when it arrives. Yes, Mr. Eckert.
Something you want to say?
I was ready to duck under the table.
That wasn't a gunshot wound.
Okay.
Never know today. So I have a question. I'm wondering if it's prudent for us to, at a future meeting, discuss some of the long-term goals that we submitted with our MS4 to make sure we're staying on target with implementation. I hate for us to be audited and find out that we still have things outstanding. I know there was talk about washing facilities for our vehicles at the highway garage and fire station, so that might be something that we want to talk about. I think it was in a 5-year thing, if I'm not mistaken.
Very good. Anything else? And one of the things that they mentioned here was going to an acre or more of disturbed land. We're at 35,000 square feet. I don't know if we want to go to it, if it's not mandatory, I'm not sure we want to go to an acre. And some of the other things they talked about relative to the post-construction, I looked at our regulations again, and I think you did too, Mr. Ferry. I didn't see where we needed to add things, but I'm going to go through them again, and I will get something out to you. Since we're talking about our regulations and everything else, something came up at the last Conservation Commission that I found very disturbing. And Mr. Mello made reference to the Stormwater Committee and its powers, duty, and authority. And he misquoted what is actually in our regulations. And he expressed concerns that we were overstepping. So again, I reviewed the regulations. The first paragraph is clear that Board of Health has total responsibility for stormwater. And that goes back to when the stormwater, when the Board of Selectmen and Board of Health were one board. As far as its authority and its ability to appoint agents, boards, commissions, committees, that takes care of everything in our existence, quite frankly. So I am gonna go through the regs again, because I think now that the two boards have been separated for a few years, we should update the, I don't think we have to do the bylaw, but I'll look at that too. I don't think we have to touch the bylaw. If we do, we'll have a public hearing. The regulations will require a public meeting to get input on any changes. So, this is something I'm gonna be working on, and I will share it with everybody. And if you have a chance to look at our bylaw and regulations, if you think of anything, just make a note. Maybe we should consider this or consider that. As I said, the thing that stood out the most to me was the going to the 1 acre or more. And I didn't think that was such a good idea. Mr. Pilling.
Is that letter addressed to everyone or just to like, does that go to like every town?
Yeah, these are, again, this is a consulting company, but the notification, they're just restating what has been talked about, and I believe what's in our 3-year plan about screening outfalls.
Because if that was sent to every town in the Commonwealth, the EPA says 1 acre or more needs a permit, and they'd be wanting all the towns in the Commonwealth to have an acre above rule for a stormwater permit in order to line themselves up with the feds. And we're below that, so we're okay, but like some towns don't have any requirement for a stormwater permit, and they may want them to have it.
Yeah, I just mentioned it because we talked about an acre when we first made the change and increased to 35,000 square feet. But it was Tom Hyers, again, this was when we were selecting and Board of Health, who said, that's roughly a house lot in Dayton, why don't we go with 35,000, we can always change it later. But I just mentioned that to you, but I'll put it in the summary again, because if whatever changes we agree to make, whatever edits, we don't touch the bylaw, but we just deal with regulations, we're still gonna have a public meeting to go over the changes. And if we need a public hearing for the bylaw, we'll do that too, but until I really get into that, that bylaw was written in pretty broad language. So, we'll see how that all falls out. But in any case, I just wanted you to know, if you happened to catch that last Concom meeting, I will let Mr. Mello know that he was looking at the specific thing that said planning board and zoning board, planning board and Concom had, I think it was called, they were the authority, but that's like on page 2 or 3. And the first paragraph, there are 2 sentences, it's very, very clear what authority the Board of Health has, and that's how this committee came about, which was approved by the Board of Selectmen, and since then, the Board of Selectmen has made reappointments to it, so I'm not concerned about our status, but a developer hearing that might say, why do we have to go to them? You know, so I just wanted to make that clear. As far as I can see in reading it, we're okay. Next item is, under new business, the Southeast New England Program Network, SNAP. They had sent an email, and I sent it out, and there's some meetings and training coming up. And I just wanted to get that out to you, and so that you look at it, and if you have a chance to sign into it, take a look at it. If you do, and you can take some notes and say, hey, I watched that thing, and I think we could do this, or this sounded like a good idea. I'm going to try to sit in on it myself. that was basically an FYI. I think, Mr. Ferry, you responded, there may be some things there that we want to look at. So, does anybody have any comments on that?
Yeah, it actually, I think it dovetails with Tim's comment he made earlier, to evaluate, that it helps evaluate where we are and where we need to go.
Yeah, we
And I
certainly,
think it also, I think it was the fourth point, you can use that information when you go for the grants, certain grants.
Yeah.
We need some, freshwater impoundment and stuff like that.
right, and that came from Bill Napolitano, because he thought it was something we should be taking a look at. And, yeah, we really need to, now that the year 3 is coming to an end, as Mr. Agnew said, we really need to look at what we put in our notice of intent, because we've got 7 years to go on that plan. And we really need to take a look and see if we need to make any changes, either in what we're doing or in something we said we were gonna do. Now, I don't think we did everything we were supposed to do in year 3, and I haven't completed the stormwater management manual or the illicit discharge thing. I finally got some records that I've been trying to get since the book had set up. But is everything totally complete? No, it's not. I mean, but let's face it, with the past year we've had, anything that needs to be done, we can determine, and we'll work on it. I mean, can't control CBC or Mother Nature or anything else, so, that would be something that we will be doing, for us. Mrs. Grassi, would you make a note of that on the next agenda, under old business, we will be talking about our notice of intent and the MS4, and we'll have a review, not separate item, a review of our existing bylaw and stormwater regs. Yes, we may have to be, I'm sure we have to make some changes. Yes, Mr. Agnew.
I'm sure most of you are aware that I've been elected chair to the Building Needs Study Committee. So with that said, if we can identify some of the things that we need to do through with the NOI submission that we did a couple of years back, I can include those in our capital projects requests so that we can actually make them, bring them to fruition. The other thing too is if we find that a building can't support some of the recommendations or requirements that we have, then the study committee can also look at the option of relocating department services, going to another building, things like that. So, you know, it's all intertwined, and I think the timing is good for it.
Does anybody else have anything? So I've kind of covered 5D2, stormwater bylaw and regs. So we'll just move that into old business, Mr. Grassi. We're getting close to 1:30. I'm gonna move to 6A. Could we get a quick update on what's happening at 170 Beach Street?
We did a perk test a few weeks ago, and we haven't received a plan yet from the engineer, but I'm sure that one's not just your simple, straightforward, simple septic system. They gotta deal with obviously grading there and trying to fit things in, so, but we haven't received it yet.
But we are moving in the right direction.
And Mr. Ferry, what's happening with the culvert on Pleasant Street?
Nothing at this time.
You went to Concom, didn't you?
I have my marching orders. Target date was July.
Okay.
July now.
And this will be on next month's agenda too, for an update. We've got a couple of minutes, update on 0 Horton Street. Say again, we'll start with you.
I think that would be, Lisa, would you mind commenting?
Yeah, and you know so DEP, the site visit with DEP 2 weeks back indicated that they were requesting, basically letting the consultant and the applicant know that, they need to give them more information, based on their site visit, they felt that an alternative analysis would be required. And then I'm gonna take it from there. They're on hold with Concom until it made more sense, instead of us amending conditions now, just issuing the conditions at the end of the review by the state. So,
Yeah, I can just add one thing, there were a couple of topics that came up while we were there, considering the alternative conditions, and a few of them dealt with me through zoning. So I authored a letter, sent it to DEP, stating the facts based on the site, that there's limited other areas that can be improved upon. So without getting zoning relief from the Board of Appeals. So similar to what we talked about, I just put it in a letter form and sent that off to DEP. I haven't heard the response, but I'm guessing that is part of their fact gathering to make their decision.
So the engineer for that property is working to get info for DEP, is that it?
Correct.
yeah, Green Seal Environmentals replying to DEP, there's a term they issued, pull up the email so I can tell you exactly what they,
Try to do it on the screen.
technical deficiency letter was issued to them regarding the full one water quality certificate application, so they have, I believe, 60 days to reply back.
Okay, when this comes up on the agenda again at the next meeting, I probably should say, when we have the final information that DEP needs and everybody else needs, one of the last things the property owner said to me was, we'll get a stormwater permit. I'm still not sure you need one, so this committee will have to make a determination if in fact, once all the information's in and they've complied with whatever they have to, and they're working with, they're okay with Concom and everybody else. As I told him when he came in over a month ago, we're not here to collect permit fees. So the question was, do they need a stormwater permit because the amount of land disturbed? So that's out there hanging. But he said they'd do it, and I, which is fine, except that if they don't have to do it, I don't wanna, I know it's not a lot of money, but that's not the point. We aren't here to collect permit fees, if in fact what is being done is covered under other boards, so forth and so on, so. Just something we'll discuss when the time comes.
Yeah, excuse me,
Yes, go ahead.
so I just wanted to bring to your attention, so because Concom doesn't review single-family houses for stormwater. So Jack and I, who's the applicant's consultant, had spoken about the fact that some towns have a stipulation for like larger, I don't know how you want to term this project, but it's a larger single-family house project. So that maybe the stormwater committee wants to consider adopting something to do with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can tell you, I only know of one property in Dayton, and it was way back when we first had the stormwater bylaw and regs. And they were required to do a stormwater plan, but it was on a very steep part of Richmond Hill on the Hot Street side. And there was opposition from neighbors because of concerns about runoff. So anyhow, that gentleman did take care of that. It was also supposed to be part of a development, and then I think in the end, it wasn't a development, it was single-family lots. But initially, it was part of development, and you made them submit it, so.
Estate lot, so maybe it's an estate lot they call it or something.
Well, it's something that the stormwater committee will make the determination on this particular project. And, but this can be something, again, when we look at, we can certainly add to stormwater regs. And if there's something that needs to be added, we'll add it. The trigger was 35,000 square feet. We all know that it's more than 35,000 square feet of disturbance, so. Again, we'll work through it and we'll do what is appropriate, both for the town relative to permits, but also to the property owner that is fair. But he already said he'd take care of it, so, which is fine. I want to go back to item 4A, the public hearing, Clearway Energy on 1420 and 1522 William Street solar project. So who do we have online on Zoom, please?
Yeah, hi there. This is Dave Cowan. I'm new, I think, to most of you folks from the Clearway team, but I stepped in about a month ago just to help out. I haven't replaced anybody. We're just a bigger team now, and hopefully we can be more responsive and keep things moving, right along here. So Dave Cowan with Clearway. I can see on the monitor that Chris Ryan from Meridian has also joined from our engineering side. Dan Von Allman, who I think everyone there is familiar with, and Tim Sullivan from TRC, whom I think you guys have all worked with before as well. So, Tim and in particular is sort of it's got some more project history, TRC's involvement. Chris being on the engineering, and Dan, of course, has project history as well. We don't have a formal submittal to request for approval today. We thought we were close. We are quite close, honestly, but we're still working through a few of the details. We're here for a couple of reasons. One is, we're happy to provide an update on the progress that's been made in the last month or so since the last hearing. And we did have a couple of questions related to some of the comments we received recently. So those are the things on our mind. Before I take off running with either of those, I'll ask what the commission feels is appropriate at this point.
Dave, this is Nancy Goulart. First of all, when you were waiting for us to call this to order, could you hear the discussion that was taking place? Because we've had problems with our video and our audio.
Yeah, no, I could hear you guys fine. The audio is pretty good for everybody around the room right now. The video has, we can see everybody. I've been on since maybe 5 or 10 after. It's all been good. Okay,
and my other question to you is, Dave, what's your background? Are you an engineer, or what exactly are you doing for this project?
Right. Well, my background is in environmental and permitting and science. So, anything to do with wetlands and environmental regulations, and I've been doing that kind of work for a very long time for not just renewable energy projects, although I've been in renewable energy, wind and solar for probably about 20 years, pretty focused in that industry. But, the full spectrum of the environmental reviews that, all kinds of projects receive. So everything from, environmental impact statements, at the federal level, right down to local permitting, like we're all discussing here. So my role is, to add a person who can be like on a daily basis, really tuned in and track the progress and the steps and keep the team sort of moving along and communicating.
Okay, are you an engineer?
No, I'm a biologist by training.
Okay, all right. So will you be on site periodically at the behind Arujo Farms?
I'm be delighted to be on site first chance I get. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, who would like to start comment, discussion? Mr. Philly, I know you had sent an email.
I did send an email, and that's what I just handed out to everybody here, was the email identifying 6 comments. Lisa and I went through the revised plan set together and came up with these items. You'll see I also made photocopies of the appropriate pages because it's a big plan set, and I think everybody needs to see every sheet in there. But basically what it came down to is on that sheet C802, the blow-up. They didn't identify the 2-foot strip on either side of the road, because remember now the road's only 16 feet wide as we go through the wetlands. They didn't show the 2 feet on either side or the vegetative plantings on the outside of that. But one of the plans says you're supposed to have 2 feet, and then the other one shows the vegetation against it. So there's some, I would say misinformation, but like one sheet didn't show what the other sheet was showing. And I think if you go to that blow-off sheet, the big 11 by 17 you guys have, if you draw in the 2 foot on the sides and then the vegetated strip, like, they're gonna be filling in the wetlands on both sides of the road. I know they say they're trying to match grade, but it looks like 4 to 10 inches of fill is what's gonna be needed in order to widen this road. And, or we got 1-to-1 slopes coming down off of the road, which is gonna mean armoring or something along those lines. So we just asked for them to add those lines in so they could clearly see where it was, so we could better see where it was at, and if they need to shift the road or file with the Conservation Commission or whatever they're gonna do. But basically it was just, we're trying to get very minute with our information. Instead of looking at this big 25-acre picture, we're trying to look at one very small area that's only 400 feet across. And they're giving us the information we want, although there's some labels missing, but we can get past that. They did cross sections, which is great. But it's still lacking some information. The only other big thing here is that the drainage calcs that they submitted show that this road overtops, which is a concern because we don't want this road washing out. So it was, how are they going to address that? And obviously these are the answers he doesn't have for us yet today, because obviously they got to crunch the numbers and do all the rest of it. But that's effectively what it comes down to. And obviously this will dovetail in with what the fire chief, the building inspector asked for with the 16-foot road with the 2 foot on either side, but being some sort of service which isn't identified on these plans. So we need to get that identified for what that's going to be so the fire chief can sign off.
Okay, where they're gonna be filling wetlands, where do they replicate what they fill?
Well, I think at this time they are hesitant to fill wetlands because that will require a notice of intent for the conservation, which means starting a public hearing process and going through all that. So I don't think they're going to want to fill wetlands based on a conversation that we had the other day. But that was before he met with his team, so you might be able to fill us in on which direction we're heading in.
Right, sure, yeah, and you know, I want to say we were so close to having revised plans done. They are, you know, I've got a review set just came in from the engineer, and last night, in anticipation that we might have those plans, I sent an email, and Todd, I don't know if you've gotten a chance to see your inbox yet, but to you and Lisa, basically responding to your email, all those comments that you just went through. So we've reviewed them all. We've taken a hard look at the drawings and the calculations. We are satisfied. First of all, we're not filling any wetlands, and that was never intended. So that was just a matter of clarifying. And I think it's been healthy getting the additional cross-sectional data, the additional elevations, because you know, it's kind of a tight fit with this road between a couple of wetlands and sensitive area here. And so the focus really has been on understanding exactly how we accomplish that fit. So it's been good, right? The cross sections have been very useful for confirming how we're going to do that. We're able to do it without straying into wetlands, without straying beyond, you know, any previously contemplated impacts. So that's in the works, you know, we're happy to discuss any one of those comments in greater detail. As I said, we did submit responses last night. A number of the responses would benefit from having plans alongside them. So we don't have the plans in yet. But Ty, you can see from what we sent where we're headed.
Okay, my question really relates to the fact that you're going to widen the roads. Oh, by the way, we've given this road a name. We're calling it Access Drive because we don't want the public to be confused with roads or streets because they might think it's Wellington or Williams or something. So Access Drive that's what we're calling the access to these the solar farm. But my question came up because the road is going to be wide, 16 feet. And I'm looking at a diagram that shows a 16-foot access drive. and there's an indication of wetland. If you're going to widen the road and you're filling wetlands, you have to replicate it, Mr. Agia.
The road is actually much wider than you think. Chief McGee went out there and walked it, almost its entirety. It was much wider than we anticipated. So I think what the developer is trying to do is work within what's there right now. And the only concern that the chief and I had is to make sure that the area outside of the 16-foot access drive for 2 feet on either side is kept mowed and free from wild vegetation, shrubbery, things like that, because if he needs to stack emergency vehicles on that access drive, we need to be able to get personnel off the vehicles without walking through vegetation. So, that said, in our maintenance portion of this, we're gonna have to make sure that the edges of that access drive stay mowed.
So in this particular diagram, it does show the 2 feet on either side, and which means the existing road is already, sufficiently wide enough for the fire chief?
Yes, based on what we saw, the day that we were out there, he was not concerned about the overall width. However, you cannot drive down there right now, obviously, but it didn't appear to us anyway that any filling would need to be done in order to get that access drive serviceable for emergency vehicles, and for construction equipment. Now, we obviously need to see that in the plan, but I think based on what I saw visually out there, I think it's attainable. Would you agree with that statement, David?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if there's a diagram circulating, don't put too much stock in that. That's from a previous plan set that we've since revised, so it will look different with this next submittal.
Is the level of the access drive going to be raised? Because there was another section that talked about potential washouts or preventing washouts. So is the access drive bed going to be raised?
No, his response, again, this is the response that came in late last night, and I'm just reading it now, so the board doesn't have it in front of me. It sounds like, number 6, they're gonna use larger stone on the road so that it won't be washing out.
Right.
Because it does overtop and everything above the 25-year stone does.
Okay.
So is the theory, or is what's proposed sort of like a trap rock or riprap type setup?
I haven't seen the plans yet.
Okay.
Yeah, the spec is it's a crushed stone. I think 8-inch minus.
Yeah, it's a Mass DOT, the modified rock fill. So this is going to be stones roughly in size between 4 and 6 inches in that stretch, which is still drivable. We've used it on driveways before. It's just heavier stone. And even in, Todd was correct in that storms in excess of the 25-year would see some water going that direction over the road. In a 100-year storm, I think the volume, the rate is 0.5 CFS in a 100-year storm. So it's not, at least the way the model is, it's not showing, a large wave of water going over there. It's just, but there will be water crossing. So that's why we want to use the larger stone.
So I've driven over 8-inch minus before. And I like Tom's input on this. We're gonna have to do a little bit of compaction on that in order to get it to be a drivable surface, right?
Yes. And it can't be too deep. Stay
Just-
fluid.
Mr. Ferry, can you just speak up? Dave, this is, Tom Ferry is the highway superintendent in Dayton.
Mr. Ferry, nice to meet you.
As Jim asked it, if it was how it would be to drive on it, yes, it would need to be compacted well, and not too deep either. The rod should stay loose.
If you have any specific requirements or recommendations, I'd be happy to add it to the specification on our plans.
Was any thought given to putting a culvert under the road or a pipe?
No, because there's no connection now, and then we'd be getting into a whole other area of permitting. And if we put a connection there, depending on how you put it in, I mean, that I didn't want to negatively affect that vernal pool, so we just wanted to leave it alone.
There was a comment relating to, and maybe you already answered this, but either a super elevated or crown driving surface, that's the access road. So I can understand how you might elevate a road with crushed stone. How do you get a curved surface? So which one is it going to be, or is it a combination?
Their response is that they're gonna add a crown to the 16-foot driveway section. It's going to be centered on the center line of the tip of the section.
Okay.
And grade it outward to meet existing elevations on each side to ensure proper drainage of the driveway surface.
Yeah, the existing contours going through that stretch, if you look at the existing topography, many of the contours already have a slight crown on them.
Well, if we're talking about the access drive, I don't know if you call it a slight crown, as I remember, it was 2 ruts with grass in the middle. Is it crown with grass in the middle?
There you go, grass.
I'm just going off our survey. We went back out there a couple of weeks ago and did additional topo in that area in order to be able to produce these cross sections, and that's what the topo shots are telling us. Yes, there are ruts out there. Yes.
I have experience with this, Chris. I grew up on a dirt road, gravel, Mr. Ferry. No, it was dirt. It had, in the summertime, it had tracks for tires and grass down the middle, and if the town didn't go down there and scrape it and grade it and dump gravel in it, the grass grew up and it was tall enough until the winter came and it disappeared. So that road up there, the access drive kind of reminded me of old times when I was a kid. I have another question as it relates to the vernal pool, and there was a reference about the ability of critters to move freely. So my first question is, if you're going to put in all these rocks, what kind of critters are in those pools, and how are they going to be able to move or cross or?
That's a good question for the biologist in the room.
Yeah, great question. Uh-oh, we left the room.
Which biologist? This biologist? I'm not exactly in the room. I didn't know if there was another. Yeah. So, well, actually, that was a question. I'm going to answer the question with a question, which is probably the thing scientists do most, right? We were curious as to what that comment was getting at. I think there were 2 parts to the comment. One is, some protections for the vernal pool. So we like to talk about what those are and, what folks have in mind. And then the other is this idea of a critter crossing, again, during construction or permanently. There are different kinds of critter crossings out there that, might be considered. So that actually is a question. We had the same question, just what,
Well,
what do
I
folks
think
have in mind?
this is Lisa from Conservation. If you could potentially look back at the original reports and see what, the biologist had stated may be in there, what the habitat was, or if you wanted to take a walk out there yourself and take a look, and then determine the best action going forward. But I mean, the Conservation Commission would obviously like to see all efforts made to protect that vernal pool. It's very close. It's, I don't think he picked up the mean annual high water of it. Maybe he did, yeah.
Yeah, that's been located in the field by biologists and then surveyed from TRC.
Okay, so, obviously, to Jim Aguirre's comment about needing mowing on the side, in that vernal pool area, we wouldn't want any mowing or clearing.
Right, right. So we've got, what we've established in the latest plan set is this, it's really just 2 feet off either side of the gravel. And it's an area where previously some of the shrub plantings might have been located during layout, final layout during construction. And we've specified on the plans that no shrubs are to go in that zone. They should all be at least 2 feet off from the side of the gravel. Now mowing would be for that 2 foot area, I suppose, by the sound of it. And, you know, care would have to be taken that you're not aiming anything toward the vernal pool. You know, if you're running a mower deck down there or a side sickle, whatever it is, you know, you're having either lay in place or blow inward toward the road. And this is just me kind of riffing off what I'm hearing for concern. So, you know, we'd have to give some thought to that and make sure that it didn't have any unintended effects on the pool. I did look back at the wetland report from, I think it was 2017, 2018. And this wasn't called out as a vernal pool functionally at that time. So there were vernal pools elsewhere in the project area where egg masses, breeding activity, vernal pool indicators were identified. It was frankly curious to me that that wasn't the case. And so when the surveyors were out a few weeks ago, they took a closer look at it. They put a rod in the pool, and as far in as they could reach from the bank, from the edge, they measured a 4 foot depth of water in there. And they thought it was even deeper in the middle. So not what you think of as your, you know, classic vernal pool, hydrologically at least. And maybe that has something to do with why it wasn't called out functionally as a vernal pool. I understand it meets the definition and it from the town's point of view, but I think maybe functionally it wasn't called out for reasons related to that.
Okay, regardless, I would like an answer, quite frankly, to my question. When you get through with this, what are the critters that would be attempting to migrate across this stone access drive? I think we'd all like to know. Like you said, when you find out, we'll know. So just let us know.
Well, are you going to make it this 8-inch minus for the entire length of it, or just for the 15-foot broad crested rear part of it?
Yeah, well, we're open to suggestion on that, but I may have mischaracterized 8-inch minus. I think I heard 4 to 6 from Chris. So, but I think again, the primary objective right now is to be err on the side of caution. So we did specify stone for the entire length of, you know, of what spans that vegetative management area, right? That 400-foot stretch. We could limit that. We could configure, we could use different stone size or sizes, I suppose, to particularly in light of the comment relating to, you know, critter crossing. So we could take a closer look at it from that respect.
Yeah, we could, if you prefer, we could limit the larger stone to just the area of the low point in the existing road where we know the water is going to top over.
Yeah, I would think you don't need the big stuff except for the weir part of it. Like the rest of it, I think is fine. But the comment was meant to be, depending on what you were doing with the roads, we didn't know. If you were going to try and put a pipe under it or go over it or whatever, or widen it or whatever it was, you just need to consider critters and your redesign and make sure that they can still get across this road.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, so we talked about especially making temporary provision during construction, right? You don't want silt fences to become barriers to, say, amphibian travel. And there are methods to address that. Long-term, during operations, traffic is going to be, you know, very light through here once the project is constructed. So I think it's less of a concern operationally, but during construction, it should receive some attention.
I've got a general biological question. When there is a vernal pool, is there activity there all the time, or is it seasonal?
Yeah, right. I mean, the typical vernal pool, right, dries up by early summer. So whatever activity is there is not what you maybe consider aquatic, right? Just like habitat. This pool is another matter. It's a little pond, you know, maybe a borrow pit from road construction or something, but it's not entirely a natural feature on the landscape, from what I can tell.
But when you said it was 4 foot deep, I was thinking of strange puddle or a pond. That's why I asked if there would be activity there. If it does anybody know, does it really dry up?
If it's a vernal pool.
Madam Chair,
Right, but do they have?
Mr. Ferry has his
Mr. Ferry has he's probably hunted through the whole area. So Mr. Ferry.
You know, I haven't hunted the whole area. That I believe is actually a man-made pond for irrigation. It probably does not dry up. That's why you're finding 4 feet and it is correct, a lot of goes on deeper. What my comment was, hearing all the different angles of this sensitive spot, I disagree with making a crown of gravel. Because now you're damming possibly more water, that we're not gonna allow a transfer pipe because we're transferring.
Well, remember, he's only talking the crown of it.
That makes a difference, it does, especially when you're trapping the water on the road now.
We can leave it flat through that area. Is that what you're suggesting?
And this type of stone, I'm thinking the 3-inch minus is the way to go. I think that's more friendly for unidentified critters that need to cross than the 6-inch minus.
I would concur with that statement.
Dave, I would just make a note, when it really gets down to the nitty gritty of that, when you start to fill in or put in whatever it is you're planning to put in that area, that you don't complete the whole thing unless you, before you do that, have Mr. Ferry take a look at it, because quite frankly, if you put it down, Mr. Ferry decides that isn't gonna work, you're gonna be taking it out. So Mr. Ferry is readily available and cooperative.
That's great. That's great to know. Could use, it's always good to have local advice.
David, it's Bill Furnett, Conservation Commission. If
Yeah,
it looks like a vernal pool, it sounds like a vernal pool, in the town of Dayton, it's a vernal pool, until you prove otherwise.
understood. Yeah, so no contesting that. And I mean, it's a water body, right? So amphibians are gonna come and go. That's just gonna happen.
Okay. Do we have anything else relative to the emails, or you're waiting for plans, Mr. Pilling, or Dave, have you got anything for anyone on the committee? And I should have told you, on this committee, I should have done this 15 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago. I'm gonna ask each member of the committee as appointed to just say their name and say what their job title is, because I want you to understand the broad scope of the people who sit. It's a 7-member committee. One person is absent today. That's Tom Pires from the Board of Health. But I want you to understand what resources we have, and quite frankly, they're available to you and your team if you need them. So I'll start with Mr. Pilling.
Todd Pilling, Stormwater Agent.
James Aguirre, Building Commissioner.
I'm Ferry, Highway Superintendent.
Timothy F. Ryan's Chairman of the Planning Board.
Lisa
Bill
Kelly.
Furnett, Dayton Conservation Commission.
And Nancy Goulart, I represent the Board of Selectmen. Also present, Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, Lisa Caledonia, Conservation Agent.
And Roz is our contact person. Roz?
Hi, Roz. We spoke earlier today.
So Roz knows where to find us wherever we are.
Ah, so that's the key. Now I know.
Put it another way, Roz knows where the bodies are. I didn't say buried, I just said where they are.
Not buried yet, yeah.
So, does anyone else have anything relative to this project? Because we're waiting for information.
Well, the only thing I would make is you get handed out a draft. What we would do is a permit on the back side is the conditions of approval. Obviously, some of these are boilerplate stuff that we pulled from other ones, but we've also added in a couple others, like you'll see number 11, about the police details, which we had kicked around. The only other one that I'm kicking around here is there's another site in town we showed up and they had a 500-gallon fuel storage tank on site. They had nothing in their slip for it, there was no provisions for it, they didn't have a permit from the fire department for it, and so we made them take it off. So I want to make it clear right in the conditions that they can't have any fuel storage on site. I mean, obviously a 5-gallon tank is one thing, but
Well,
yeah, over a certain size or they have the right permit.
yeah, so we can put a condition that says that nomenclature where they're prohibited unless properly permitted.
Dave, the other thing I would say is that in addition to the members of the committee that introduce themselves, we also from time to time call on others. And the fire chief obviously is involved. We've had the police chief attend a meeting we had towards the end of April to talk about public safety concerns because you're actually going to be passing through 2 busy parking lots with a lot of foot traffic. So that's the other thing too is if something arises and you're not sure, if you get in touch with Mrs. Grassi in the Board of Health office, she can direct you to who it is you need to speak to, or we'll figure out who it is you need so you won't be chasing people. You'll get the right person to begin with.
Terrific. Thank you. Yes, we've had some interaction already with fire chief and police chief.
Okay.
And the only other condition here that's a little different is number 6, that I'm asking that eyewitness test pits at the locations of the drainage basins, the soil classification, and water table prior to construction of basins. Water tables within 2 feet of the bottom of any basin, a redesign or groundwater mounting calcs will be necessary. Any redesign or calcs must be submitted prior to installation of any solar array infrastructure. So these are the test pits that we had asked for, but everybody wanted to wait until the trees are coming down. That's when the equipment's going to be in there. So obviously, as soon as the trees are down, we can dig some holes, and if anything needs to change, we need to adjust it before they keep going.
Absolutely.
So basically, I figured what would happen is today we could hash out some of these conditions. We can send a draft off to Clearway for them to at least be aware of them, so that when we get to our next meeting, we can kind of finalize everything. That was the intention here. Now, mind you, there will be 2 permits because it's 2 lots, 2 owners, so it's 2 separate permits. And we're working with Clearway now to identify how many megawatts is on each property, how many acres of disturbance on each property, so that we can break them into 2, but ultimately the permit would be the same for both, that the conditions of approval would be the same.
Yeah, Dave, this is Jim Agnew. I just want to be clear, we can't wait until the next meeting for that information. I need that stuff sooner than later, because that's how I assign project numbers and calculate fees, et cetera, okay?
Yeah, got it. Got it. Yeah, I believe our construction team was meeting on that, among other things, this morning. So we're hoping to have some info for you pretty quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Did anybody have any other conditions they wanted to possibly throw in here so Ross and I can get them drafted? Is there anything else anybody wanted to see?
I'll take a look and let you know.
I mean, I know you have your order of conditions to conservation, you have yours through the planning board, and so I get there, everything's different, but. Okay, so we'll get up a draft and we'll send it out to everybody, including Clearway, so everybody will have it in advance of the next meeting.
Are you still planning to start in July?
We'll start as soon as we can once we have all our authorizations. I think July probably isn't in the cards at this point. We need to get through a few more approvals.
Okay.
I don't see it being much longer than that as long as you get us what we need, so.
Yeah, we're really close, so.
Yep. Good. It feels that way. So that's good to hear that it looks that way. We did have a process question, and I don't know if it's appropriate. but the next set of plans could be over there, within 24 hours or less, I suppose. Which also puts us in sort of the same time frame as maybe the next Conservation Commission meeting. Your next meeting is a month away, is that true?
We haven't set the date yet.
Okay.
We don't meet regularly, we meet as needed, so.
On average, we meet once a month, yeah, we eat, as a matter of fact, we have pizza.
Is this referring to this committee or the conservation?
Well, he was both, what's the date they're on for the next conservation?
They haven't filed with us to be on.
Or even to request the revised plans be accepted or anything, like nothing?
So in order to get it in for the July 15th meeting, you'd have to submit by Thursday, July 1st.
Right.
Then we'll likely have another meeting 2 weeks after that. We've been having to add meetings, we have so much going on, so.
Okay, well, so, this plan set may go to both committees. I guess what I'm getting at, we'll submit it, Todd and Lisa, to you guys directly. And then, if there are any final comments we can address before the 1st, we might flip those around if that's at all possible.
Well, the 1st might be tough because I'm taking a few days off next week.
Okay.
What I was gonna do is get it submitted in order to get the agenda.
You just asked we asked
Right.
if we could review it before the 1st.
Oh, review it before the 1st?
Well, I'm not asking that you do. I was just saying we'll be submitting it, and it might be basically going to both committees at that point, right?
I would think as long as he gets it in, that
Yeah.
locks him in for the July 15th conservation meeting.
Right.
And we can get the comments to him before that.
Yeah.
And then presumably the stormwater would meet the week after that, like the 21st or 22nd.
Yep. Good. All right. Yeah, I think we're on a very good track for that right now. And I hope that, we've understood all the comments and we'll have them addressed in this next set. We're doing the final review on it right now. Another one of Todd's comments was make sure you do the final review before you send it in. So we're doing that.
Does anybody else have anything?
I had a quick question, if it's all right.
Sure, go ahead, Chris.
I just want to make sure I didn't misunderstand something. I thought I heard one or two of the board members say that they were not in favor of the driveway having the 2% crown as it passes between the wetlands. Am I correct?
Now, there was only one that said that, but he's got a lot of clout. Mr. Ferry, would you like to elaborate, please?
Well, the reason why I ask is because the reason why we crowned it here is because, like I think I mentioned earlier, some of the existing contours out there are crowned, and we're trying to minimize any kind of fill, but we're also trying to match the existing centerline grades. So if I put a flat cross section on a crowned existing trail, now I have to fill in on either end, and I'm trying to avoid filling at all possible.
Right, but some places the road pitch is left, some pitch is right, some has a crown, and that's what I thought you were trying to make it uniform.
Right, my comments were with the unknown or unidentified critters that we don't want to identify, and the inability to consider a cross pipe to relieve water pressure. And I brought up the fact that the crown, you're going to be potentially damming water on the road, at least up to the crown. That didn't make sense. With the flat bucket, you fill in those ruts with the 3-inch minus stone. I think that is more inviting to a critter across than a 6-inch minus. And you're not trapping water to an unidentified water body or the inability to cross with water.
Okay, I think the end of that was a little bit muddled on my end. I apologize.
Yeah, the camera doesn't seem to be turning to who's talking.
Yeah.
We have a video camera in here that's supposed to turn and see you and put the camera on you and put the microphone on you, but it doesn't seem to be moving very well today, so we apologize.
Okay, no problem. Maybe we can follow up after this hearing then, just to try to get some clarity on that.
Yeah, Chris, I would, as I said to Dave Cowan, the best thing to do is, if there are specific issues that a member of the committee raises, in this case, you need to talk directly to Tom, because quite frankly, I said he has a lot of clout, and if Mr. Ferry says something has to be done a certain way, he's got the committee support, so you need to work with Mr. Ferry on this, okay?
Okay. I just want to get that clear. I'll reach out to him. I just want to get that clarified because that could make some changes in the plans. I just want to make sure that we're clear on what everybody wants before I go ahead and do it.
No, I honestly, I think it's just some spot grades in there or whatever. I know you're talking a cross section, but we're only talking a 16-foot wide road here. Like I said, I'd rather it pitch one way or the other, or a slight crown. We're only, to me, it's only like an inch or two for a crown. We're not. I just think it all needs to be the same instead of just going back and forth and back and forth. You know, that's what I was thinking when I wrote the comment. So.
Yeah, I mean, because we're going by the center line grades. We're matching the center line grades. That way, once the new driveway goes in, it will be nice and even all the way down.
Okay, and we can clean the sides before there any asphalt on the road.
There's no asphalt on the road.
There's a William Street.
Oh, wait a minute. We're only talking this stretch in here is what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
in general, though, the clean the sides before they're on the road.
That was the intention, yeah.
So I have another question, since I just, visualized something. Back to the parking lot at Arujo's farm, where the first driveway in, which is the driveway that will be the access road to the solar farm. When you drive in, you must turn left or right, meaning if you're a customer. Right goes into the north parking area, and left goes into the parking area in front of the farm stand, plants and all of that. It's a gravel parking lot, it's a gravel drive at this point until you start up more of the slope, and that it becomes the rutted road with the grass eventually. So what are you going to do where the gravel parking lot meets William Street so that a whole bunch of crud isn't coming out onto William Street? And as I said, that's a one-way in. Are you going to make it an in and out on that access drive?
I think what we had right now, we're proposing to put an asphalt apron leading into the property to try to keep some of the gravel on the property. If you want us to look at doing anything a little more extensive than that, then we can certainly look at it. Do you have anything specifically in mind, or?
No, that again is a question Mr. Ferry could answer. I'm just visualizing this thing because I'm a frequent customer. So that would appear to be a solution, but again, Mr. Ferry would deal with that. But my other question is, that's a one-way entrance. Are you going to make it both ways?
I don't think to my knowledge, I don't think the intention was to change that. I think the intention is just to sort of formalize it and make it so that we weren't putting any gravel out onto William Street.
Okay.
You know what she's referring to is
That's not what
the
I'm
direction
talking
of
about.
traffic. So right now, that's a one-way in, and then you turn left or right and exit to the left, the south or north of the entrance. Are you looking to make that an in and out on that driveway?
Not to my knowledge. I've never been asked to do that. We've never been asked or told that that's what was going to happen.
Okay, so you need to look at that because all of the traffic that enters Arujo's, whether you're a customer or whether you're going to be somebody working up on the solar thing, you're going to enter through that access drive. Customers must exit either through the south or the north parking lot because it's one-way traffic in each parking lot. My question is, if you're going to enter through the access road going west, I want to know how you're going to get back on Williams going east. Are you going to come down and go straight? In other words, make that access road if you will, a two-lane road for entrance and exit, or when you try to exit the property, you're gonna come down the hill and cut through the parking lot, one of them, north or south, how are you going to exit the solar farm property?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
So I think, Chris, if I can jump in, this is
Sure.
Don Allman from Clearway. Chair, that's a really good question, and one that we honestly hadn't gotten into the detail yet in terms of logistics in talking with the Arusho family. So I think that's a really good and important thing for us to add to our construction traffic management plan. So we've been playing a little bit of a game of telephone with conflicting vacations with the police chief and getting the next meetings. But we'll make sure to talk to the Arushos. Just speaking off the cuff, I would guess that we would land in a situation where there is limited supervised two-way exits of construction vehicles out of that entrance with the Arusho's approval. And that passenger vehicles, trucks, and things would follow the normal flow of traffic in the parking area. That's, that would be my guess, but we need to talk to the Arushos and talk to the police chief about what makes the most sense for controlling traffic in that area. So we're hoping to have that next meeting imminently. We're just trying to figure out a time that works for everybody. And we'll make sure to include that question and concern as part of that conversation.
Okay, so when you get back to the committee, add the traffic flow for that access road. We know how it's going to get in there. Our question is, how's it going to get out? So add that answer to the list of questions we got about the critters and the stones. Anybody else have questions about the proposal, Mr. Aguirre?
The only thing that was just brought to my attention, Mrs. Grassi said that at the last meeting, I brought up sweeping with the amount of truck traffic that was going to enter and exit the facility. And without any paved surfaces or trap rock, we want to make sure that there was some routine sweeping done to William Street to keep the sand and silt and whatnot to a minimum.
Is there a catch basin on William Street, Mr. Fair?
Yep.
So we want a silk stack in that too?
Yes. What should I just ask Tom?
What needs to be north? The basement right in front of it. That flows right to it. Just to the north and bottom.
Are there any basins right on William Street in that area?
That's.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it's not
okay.
showing up on the plan set, so.
Okay, so Daniel or Chris or somebody, you need to locate the basins that Mr. Ferry referred to, and they need to be on a plan.
Yeah, that's no problem. We can add that, and then we can also specify to put silt sacks in them and put a silt sack detail on the plans.
Well, Mr. Aguirre, did I understand you correctly that even if they put asphalt down as an access from William Street in, that asphalt should also be swept periodically so that they're not tracking anything out?
Yeah, so the way that site is set up, aside from the fact that trucks will be driving several hundred feet before they hit the road, there's nothing to really clean off the tires because it's all dirt and gravel just to get to William Street. So I'm concerned that once they get out to William Street, there might be a fair amount of track mud and whatnot that makes its way out there. And because of the traffic that goes in and out of there, it'll get ground up and silted up really, really quickly and easily. And I hate to see something happen with a motorcycle or, whatnot. We don't want the accidents. So, yeah, I think it's prudent for us to make sure that they do some routine sweeping to make sure it's kept clean and clear.
Mr. Ferry, does it make sense that, thinking about the existing access drive that's there, if they pave from the edge of William Street in for a certain number of feet, would it make sense to then have riprap before you get to the existing
Sure, we've done that in all our construction sites.
combination of things? So Chris, that's something you might want to discuss with Mr. Ferry regarding
So
how many feet of asphalt and how many feet of riprap or
we probably
whatever.
have to go beyond, the people cross from the parking lot to the store, because you don't want to walk over the grass.
I'm thinking all the way past the building. Do you know how you can walk up and go in the back of the greenhouses? Or they have a lot of the salad vegetables out behind them. If you go further up,
That would be too far, because what's gonna happen is the water's gonna get on the asphalt and carry out to the road where we don't want it. It's just beyond the opening of the parking lot to the north is all we need to do.
with asphalt and riprap,
Asphalt and we've got 3 inch stone between ties.
It should work.
This all has to be cleared through Mr. Rujo, but I agree with you, we wanna make sure that the 3 inch minus or whatever trap rock we have isn't gonna interfere with the pedestrian traffic.
yeah, I agree. So Chris, you need, again, Mr. Ferry is the person that you need to work this out with, okay?
Sure, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, that'll move around. As long as that one's pretty efficient. Cross it has-
You all set? Anybody have anything else you can think of?
This time.
Mr. Ferry, what's a good time to contact you in the next couple days?
No, we're not.
Not him.
So I start my day at 6, anytime after 6. We work Monday through Friday.
Okay,
The 4th of July will probably be off.
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
I believe it's coming.
I'll be in touch with you either tomorrow or Monday at the latest.
Okay, yeah. Monday might be better because I have an event getting set up at the garage tomorrow.
Okay, all right, we'll do.
Unless you're interested in attending a good flea market, I just mentioned that. The Lions Yard sale will be Saturday morning. Anyhow, are we all set? Mr. Ferry, personal request, just make sure that whatever they put in there, if it rains and I'm out there, I don't want my new boots getting mucked up. My new laces.
Pink can handle it.
Huh?
Pink can handle it.
Okay, all right. I guess we're all set. Dave?
Yep, hi.
You still there? Hey, since you're the new guy on the block, I just gotta tell you one thing. You can ask this committee or these town officials anything. The one thing you can't say is, we've done this in other communities and this is how they did it, because the answer is gonna always be, well, this is how we do it in Dayton. So I'm just telling you heads up, okay?
Got it, understood.
Okay, we all set? Now we've got to, continue this hearing.
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing
All right.
until
Let's get it.
irrigation.
We don't yet, that's what we have to do.
All right, we're looking at July.
Waiting on your motion until they pick a date.
The fourth Thursday is the 22nd, and you said the Concom's meeting on the 15th, so they would have information too?
Yes.
So is the 22nd of July something we should look at?
Oh, personally, I'd rather a Wednesday, because Thursday's the end of our week, so it makes it really difficult to jam this up right at the end, so I would rather do a
21st?
Wednesday than a Thursday.
21st?
I don't know how everybody else feels,
So that would be the third Wednesday.
that would.
Or would you want to go to the further out?
No, I think that's.
The 21st, the Wednesday?
Dave, does that sound like a tangible date for you?
Well, I think it does. Again, our hope, if I'm not off base, is that this next plan set is going to address, the comments we got most recently were from both Todd and Lisa. So hopefully we're close to dovetailing everything together here. So if the two meetings are within a week of each other, that would actually be perfect, I think.
Okay, well, it'll be 6 days, not 7, because we're talking the 21st. Wednesday, the 21st of July for the stormwater, and Concom is the 15th.
And we would stick with the 1 o'clock with the 1:30 for the public hearing.
Yes.
Mr. Rhines?
So you want to finish that, Mr. Ryan?
I would make a motion to continue the public hearing for Clearway until July 21st at 1:30 p.m.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Mr. Pilling?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye.
Mr. Ferry?
Aye.
Mr. Rhines?
Aye.
Mr. Fernet?
Aye.
Nancy Goulart, aye. Okay, I think we're all set.
Thank you.
All right, thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks all.
Meet you all.
Have a great 4th of July, everybody.
Enjoy.
Thank you. So do you need anything else on this,
No, I think the conditions that everybody threw out, that we can throw them in there, in order to be able to, throw it out as a draft, so at the next meeting, we should be able to find it. So,
Does the sweeping, is that in SWIP? Can we deal with that with SWIP or?
I don't know if it's in there, so I don't have it with me to read it.
Because I think it's important.
But we can add that in as a condition, because we have in installing, maintaining siltation control, we can add in sweep the street as necessary. Mike Mullins still there, Jim.
I see him.
Mike, do you have anything that you want to comment on? If you do, just give us a holler, okay?
Yeah, no, I'm just listening intently, but I don't have anything at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, Jim, I can.
I know we moved on, but couldn't we set a condition that, we hate to have Arujo shut down with the park owners, but have that parking lot used as their parking area and then have, like, say, gauges just running back and forth to the side?
That's a really long way for them to go, but I know we kicked around with them, how are you gonna manage traffic, and we haven't gotten a good answer out, which is why I can't see pushing it again, it's a matter of, hey, you gotta figure this out.
We don't
There's a
want to have.
lot of people in there in the fall.
Yeah, exactly. We don't shut the gravel.
You're correct. I know we're out of the hearing, and it's up to the leaders to set it, but I think in the perfect world, they're gonna be rearranging the greenhouse configuration and the close, I bet you, in that same time. But we don't know those points.
Right.
And
a lot of it
they're not
depends on
gonna
the start construction.
dampen the fall sale either. So it's either before or after fall.
Because what they said is after the trees are cut and they drag it all out, then they get like deliveries of product, and they can schedule that at like before 9 o'clock in the morning, or avoid the busy time of the day. And all the employees drive in, and then they leave the car all day in the back, and then they come out at the end of the day. So it sounded like it would work okay as long as the tree cutting is done. So. And that's why they're hoping to start as soon as they can, because then maybe in August they can get all the trees out of there, so September they're back to a normal schedule.
They should schedule their ins and outs so that no one's trying to exit when somebody's trying to enter, obviously. If there's not enough room, one has to pull over, which means there'll be in a parking lot somewhere. But,
Yeah, that's why we discussed non-off-peak times for the delivery.
exactly. Yeah. And the other thing too is, anyone who's been a customer there, you know when you get there, you can't always determine where there is a parking spot open. If the north lot's full, people park up against the fence headed south, which means they're parking behind all those other cars. And if you go back and forth, you can make it, but it's just something that's got to be considered. I was picturing sitting in the car saying, how do I get in or how do I get out? So.
It can be confusing.
Engineer electrician over here, reconfiguring things? Looking out over there, Jim.
I don't know why you won't pin this camera. It just seems odd. And the camera's not following us.
Well, Jim, I think it's because it's set up differently, because that's meant to show you everybody outside the room, like they're part of the room.
I was even the demo. That's not how it works.
Oh, okay. Well, that's the only way I can figure is that you're looking at other people.
So is that mic here when it's on now?
Mike's the only one.
Okay.
We're still being recorded.
Okay, so let's move ahead to item 6D. No, excuse me, 6C. Maris Lane, conditions of stormwater permit.
So at the last meeting, we finalized the conditions and we issued the stormwater permit. What you've got is what was the final that went out, so everybody could see what we came up with, so. So like the conditions you see on here for number 2 and 3, we'll probably insert those directly into Arujo's.
Which one is it this one?
Turn it around, please. Yes, that's it.
So this is Maris Lake, okay.
Yes.
Only for like the 5 houses in the subdivision that we're talking about here. Generally, the road's already been built, so a lot of the conditions we would normally do.
Have you been up there recently, up in Maryland?
I have not been up there in the last, I've not been up there in the last week or so.
Some of the veneer they put up on both sides is starting to fall down, so
Yeah.
there may be a condition there, but look at, you know, I doesn't for here.
Yeah, I don't think Stormwater can get into that, but
You know, something to look at. It's still in the road, we just had that heavy rain, probably had a chance to clean it up, hopefully.
the silt sacks weren't full yet, but yeah.
I mean,
There's
so-
not much for ground in that road either,
Right.
but that's a different problem.
Is this still a homeowners association thing?
It's still a developer.
Oh, it's still in
Yeah, I
development.
don't think there is a home association.
Not
there,
yet,
is there?
nothing's been established yet.
Is the developer for the 5 houses the one that built the others?
No.
No, this is a completely different developer. He's been great to deal with. I don't have any issues with him.
That was my question.
He's been very responsive, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Judy mentioned it before.
Yeah. I mean, just, he found stumps on the property that were buried previously by, we think, that other developer, and he called me right away, removed them all. So, no, he's doing the right thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this will be on next month's agenda also for an update. 6D, update on Segregated Riverland disturbance in the wellhead protection zone. Mike, do you wish to comment on this? Are you still there?
He just,
Yeah, sorry, Jim asked me to turn my camera and microphone off. I can only imagine why, but I actually,
You need a tan.
So Mike,
I'm sorry, I did have somebody in my office. What was the question? I'm sorry, what was the issue?
the agenda item 6B, update on Segregated Riverland disturbance, this is Dora Estates. Did you want to comment on anything? Because we've been working on this together, but since you're here, if you'd like to comment.
Yeah, no, I just want to, the only comment I have at this point is, as everyone probably knows, I believe the meeting on the 14th, I believe it was in June in Taunton before the Concom, that hearing was continued to July 19th. And, you know, like, and we are still, the priority for the town is having the Concom actually approve an outside peer review. And we are having follow-up conversations with the town outside council in this matter, like as well as conversations with city officials as well, in hopes of making sure that is able to happen.
So at that, what we thought was going to be a hearing, but we got, late in the day, we heard that the representative for the developer was going to request a continuance, and that did happen. But 4 of us went simply because there was another agenda item, and that was Forest Hills, and that also got continued until the 19th. So all we did was leave copies of Mr. Pilling's responses with attachments that was replies to what had been given to him from the representative of SciTech. And it was that representative that didn't have time to go through everything and whatever. So anyhow, it was continued. And we'll go back in July and see what we hear from them, but That was about it. As I said, there was also mention of Forest Hills, but that's been continued, so we'll follow up on that one too. Does anybody else have anything on Dora Estates?
Yeah, I believe there was a letter that was submitted as well.
Yeah, what we, besides Mr. Filling's, many-page submission, there was a letter from Woodard and Curran, engineers for the water district, and copies of that were left sufficient for, the entire Conservation Commission and the property owner and, everybody else, so, that was more information. Now, the letter from Woodard and Curran basically raised questions, but there could be no conclusions because obviously the excavation had taken place, the blasting had taken place, and it's not like anything could have been observed during any of this. So anyhow, that letter is on file. We do have that. Does anybody else wish to comment on Dora Estates? And I just want to say thanks to everybody that was able to come that night, even though we knew it was going to be continued. Dayton was represented, so that's good.
We do plan on having a contingent going to the next meeting.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's very important that as long as this is an open issue, until the resolution has been reached that is satisfactory to the town of Dayton, protective to its water and everything else, which I think is probably close to happening, but certainly. And then, I would be surprised if there's gonna be a lot of discussion about Dora. I don't know what's gonna come up about Forest Hills. Eventually that's gonna come before us if it gets approved at the various board levels. The thing that's really important from a stormwater perspective is, and I mentioned this before, I've been asked an opinion on Forest Hills, and my response is, I can't offer an opinion simply because if it goes through the permitting process, it's gonna end up before the Stormwater Committee. And if I offered an opinion, no matter what it was, I would be in conflict of interest. So that's a caution for everybody. And I think everybody knows that, but I just mentioned that. Whatever decisions or involvement we have will have to be done here, so it's open in public, so. Yeah, anything else, Dora Estates, so July 19th, 6 o'clock, Taunton City Hall, as far as we know. If anything changes, we'll get an email out to you. Update on Brook Street solar project. Grasshopper.
Yes, so there is a meeting that Todd, myself, and the fire chief are going to conduct. We haven't been able to do that because of town meeting, year end, people using time off. We've just not been able to assemble a meeting. The purpose of that meeting is to go out and walk this solar project and do a mock run for the structure, stormwater structure inventory plan that we put together. So that'll happen sometime in July, and my hope is by the 21st, we're going to have a formal update on the Elm Street project, which I intend at that point to look for a vote of the committee to send a formal letter of action out to the developer regarding the inaction on their part. And then secondly, we can finally discuss the stormwater infrastructure inventory plan that we put together in earnest. So again, I appreciate your patience, but it's been no fault of anyone. We've all been busy, but it looks like we can finally talk about these two in earnest next month.
Okay, anybody have any comments or questions on the Brook Street project?
So Brook Street, they got started, they went in and cleared the trees. Lisa and I went out, they didn't finish putting in the erosion control till Tuesday late morning. And we signed off on the stormwater permit and all that, and it's an 18-inch, it's heavy, they ain't moving it. We made them put it down like through, with water's running under the bridge, because we figured there's gonna be some silt washing up from under the bridge, and they'll be able to hand shovel it out. I went up there today after, I'll call it a significant rainstorm. It was only a half an inch of rain that because they got a rain gauge there. And I didn't see anything significant that occurred up there. So the trees are all piled up and they're gonna start chipping them. And I think they said like 5 truckloads of logs are going off to a logging company. But they're moving forward.
Tom, I haven't been able to get up there yet to go on vacation. Is the roadway being kept clean?
Yes.
So I drove by there one day and, is the Porta John still stuck on the culvert?
No, they moved it, it's probably about 30 feet in. Because the if you remember when we first went over the bridge, it was like straight in, it was a crushed stone pad. All the vehicles were going off to the right, we had them extend that and wrap around the corner. And they've moved the porta potty and the construction box that now has the SWIP, and the permit, and the order of conditions, and everything's now in that box on site, so everybody has access to it, so. And the fuel tank that was there is no longer there, they got rid of that, so.
The only reason I mention that is because when I went down there, they had, what I think was probably more siltation, I'll call them supplies, and the Porta John, and all that was on the culvert, and I assume it was there to block off access for people who didn't go on there, but I just wondered, so they're crossing the culvert and everything is going along okay?
And I've driven in with the car several times now, and I haven't had any problems, so.
Excuse?
Yeah, you can go.
Thank you. I'll be back.
So this will be a continuing issue for next month?
Yeah, this is another one we'll get an update on.
That's what signed
I did not open the one in the box for a signature.
Because as of Tuesday morning, Melissa called me and asked us for our inspection report, and I said, well, Todd signed off, it's in the box, that should be sufficient. And I said, did you have a copy of that SWIP bound up for us yet? And she said she requested that, she actually requested it from, I want to say Nick, and they were.
So when I originally asked Nick said Signal Energy was gonna get it to us, and then when we asked Signal Energy, they turned around and asked Nick to give it to us.
Oracle.
Oh, Oracle, sorry. So yeah, so it's no, they're gonna do it, and so we haven't gotten it yet, so.
And they weren't aware that they had to sign it, or at least they were playing like they.
Yeah, and inside the one they had, it had no contractor names or phone numbers or any of the important information, so they're putting it together now, so.
Project might be over.
No, I don't think it would go over.
So
Not over, huh?
that's a question, like, we're not holding them up, right?
We're not, but if they continue to not give us the information, then we may have to do something, but right now, they're like, oh no, we'll get that for you right away, and they've done everything we've asked so far, and just, I think it's a matter because there's 6 different companies involved.
Yeah.
It's like, well, are you supposed to sign it, are you supposed to sign it, or are you supposed to sign it, and then debating over who's supposed to sign it, I think is what it's coming down to, so. Because the guy that's in charge of the construction site right now is only gonna be there for 3 weeks, and then he's gone, and then somebody else comes in as the project manager, so it's very confusing. So,
What does Melissa do?
she sits in her car and once.
No, I mean, other than sitting in her car.
No, and
What's her
then
role?
her job is to, and then once in a, like, she tracks everything coming in and out, and she does the construction inspections and that kind of thing, but her job, it sounds like she's overseeing the project from the outside, not from the inside, does that make sense?
I don't even know if she's still there, I haven't seen it.
I was there today when I went by, was it?
Anything else on Brook Street? So we'll be talking about this again at the next meeting, we'll have another update.
The agenda never gets shorter.
Well, we get so many ongoing projects, you know? Borrego Solar Project down the street.
Well, Jim just said that we're waiting for them to submit an as-built to us so that they can energize the system. They're still not energized. They've been still, and it's been what, 9 months since they finished construction out there, 6 months? But we're waiting for an as-built before we can let them, and we haven't heard back. So I don't know what, so like Jim said, we may have to send them a letter saying, hey, your building permit, you know, you've only got so long, it's gonna be inactive, so. But, yeah, he's gonna reach out to them one more time and find out what they're doing.
Okay. Mrs. Brassard, this goes on the agenda again. Be sure to put down phase 2. As you know, phase 1 is the one that's been around for a while. And if you were at town meeting, this is the pilot agreement that got approved. So I think we're all done with phase 1, unless there's a gully washer and they don't fix it, in which case we'll be involved. But I think everything that they wanted for that project, with the approval of the pilot agreement, I think it's done. The gentleman I'm dealing with on phase 2 is the same man that did 1, that's Travis Stewart. He is also going to be involved with pilot agreements for the 2 farms behind Arujos, because they're all clearway. So I would think those will go relatively easy since he's already seen the boilerplate for phase 1. So other than filling in the blanks, I don't expect to see major negotiations. 6G, do we have anything on the status of subdivision stormwater structure inventory?
Well, like Jim said, it's just been a matter of timing between people's vacations and this and that, so we haven't been able to go out to a subdivision yet to run through it to see how it works, so we're just gonna have to continue that again. The good news is COVID is over, in case anybody hadn't heard, so.
It's probably too soon to say that because they keep talking about this other one that's out there.
Don't jinx us.
As far as 6H, did you have something, Mike?
Sorry, my video was on again. I apologize, Jim and everyone.
Well, Mr. Aguiar's gone, so we can't blame him this time.
Yes, we can.
We can.
Now that he's gone, we can certainly do that.
6H, Forest Hills, as I said, the only involvement we've had is it was on the agenda for the town Concom this month, but it got continued, so that's that.
We have a public hearing, it's gonna be held at the middle school on July 21st at 6 p.m. Forest Hills.
And Conservation Commission is here in Forest Hills tonight.
You said a public hearing the 21st of July at what time?
6 p.m. at the Dayton Middle School.
That's live, correct?
Yes, live, member X.
What's Lisa? About the meeting tonight.
I told him, I forgot.
Concom has a meeting, this evening, 7.
Okay,
Town hall.
is this the first time
Here.
this has come before?
No, here, right?
Is this the first time it's, because I know planning board, they keep asking to be continued, but is the Concom meeting the first time it's come before a board?
Concom, they came before us around 2 years ago to review the wetland delineation.
Okay, but then everything went quiet. So is this the first time they're coming back before a town board?
They already
Yes,
went
they
planning board
done the
once.
planning board once and they have asked for continuances.
Okay. Do you have to leave, Mr. Perry?
I have to sign in a Zoom for 3 with an attorney.
Well, we can finish this pretty quick, I think.
Yeah. Anything on Hunter's Hill?
Planning board wise, we've heard nothing. All of our conditions have been set with the developer. And from what I understand, we don't believe they've done any work up there recently. I've not taken a ride to the person.
I haven't either.
So next week I can plan on going up that way to see if any construction's going on.
Okay.
I don't think any construction's going on, but we should go, maybe we could go together.
Lisa.
Or all 3 of us can go. We can take the veteran tan if you want to do that.
Okay.
Good meeting.
He said he wants to go take a ride over at Hunter's Hill, and I said maybe we could go together. Todd wants to go too, maybe you wanna go too.
So we can take the veterans van and we can, whoever wants to go.
Okay.
So just-
We just can't have a quorum.
We could also maybe include Maris Lane, take a ride there, and maybe some of the other subdivisions we have going on, potential, especially, Hunter's Hill and, up in Maris Lane, because, Maris Lane is.
Well, we can work out where we're gonna take a drive to, but yeah.
Concom reviewed or met with Long-Built Homes and Evan Watson last week. We determined a peer review, so we picked Niche Engineering and Ecosystem Solutions to review the wetlands and the stormwater.
This is Hunter's Hill?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Niche will be reviewing the stormwater for Hunter's Hill.
Okay.
That's where we're at. However, they don't have revised plans. They're still getting all the new wetland flagging on in the CAD. They maybe should have waited to file with us until they had that done, it's been months.
Yep, oh,
It was their choice, so.
Okay, 7 correspondence, do we have anything? No, I'm not aware of anything. No. Any public input? We only got mic for public. Oh, are you guys doing that?
Madam Chair, I'd just like to, just on the public input, very quickly, is that, the planning board has been working with, Greenbrook LLC on the decommissioning language for Tremont Middle Street. They sent us back some information in regards to that, and we did not like the way that their format was when they set that up. So what we have done is that, through Mrs. Easterday and Meaden Talman, we have sent out a boilerplate for them to use for, the wording on the decommissioning and, that type of thing. So there was just a little bit of, I wouldn't say misinformation, but what they sent us just wasn't in the legal parameters. So we had to make sure that we got, legal to work on that for us.
Okay. Anything else on the public input?
Oh, I misspoke about, Zero Horton, I said they had 60 days to respond to DEP, it's 180.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's a long time.
DEP doesn't move fast.
yeah, well, that's giving him 180 days, so if he takes 180 and then DEP takes 180, we're talking,
Anything else on the public input? Okay, approval of the minutes. Did those minutes go out? I had sent 2 sets to you, but they may not have gotten out.
I actually didn't see them.
Okay.
I think, did you leave them over there, right? Did you?
No, I didn't print them. I sent them through the email.
Yeah, I did not
I
see
don't remember
that.
seeing them.
Okay. I gotta tell you, this morning I was sending emails to Mike Mullen and, reading it. I couldn't get anything to go to town hall. I could send it to this building, but it kept telling me I had wrong addresses. And I'm looking at them and saying, no. So I put those all into drafts and left them.
Well, Mike set up his email so we couldn't get any emails from outside, so we could get to work though.
Did you hear that, Mike? That was your friend Todd. He's making up for Jim.
I think you got them.
What does
There it is.
that say? I don't like my name being mentioned.
After I got through all my other emails, I did, send them. So
So nobody's seen them yet, so we have to table these.
Sorry.
So, March 9 and April 22nd, those will be coming out, and, April 27th, those will almost be ready,
And the May one should be ready also,
so,
so, yeah.
when you get that email, assuming you get it, Roz, if you don't, let me know,
Okay.
hold it for the ones I'm gonna send on the 27th, okay?
But we don't need any type of motion.
No, they'll just be on the next, one last shot, does anybody have anything before we adjourn? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Is there a second?
second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor, Mr. Tilly?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mr. Rhines?
Aye.
Mr. Fredette?
I
Still aye. Okay. I got one question, Mr. Berry is, he's on the hot seat for this. Does anybody in this room know where was the fire warden's tower on Richmond